So people are always asking me, is Wi-Fi convenient?
Some locals pay 2 years in advance for their rent.
What in the world?
Yeah. Whether it's social or business, people are almost always late in my experience. I know you Ghanaians are gonna come after me and say it's not true for business, but it is.
If you choose to live in another country, then you gotta choose to adapt to the culture. That's what it is. So I lived 4 months in Barbados, and I've been chatting about that a lot on my channel. But today I'm bringing my friend Joe, who's lived 2 years in Ghana, to talk about the similarities in our experiences and the differences, y'all. On his channel, we already discussed the interesting way that WhatsApp is used, plugs that we have to use, groceries in Ghana. I know you've heard about groceries on my channel, but just watch the video, y'all. It's gonna be linked below. All right, so before we jump into it, Joe, I want them to know like a little bit about your channel and who you are, sir. Break it down for us.
Yes, so my name is Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American. I live in Ghana, and my channel is called Authentic African, and it follows my journey moving to Ghana, living in Sierra Leone, back and forth between Sierra Leone and Ghana. I'm building a house in Sierra Leone, living in Ghana, so you get to know everything about what it's like to move from America to Ghana. So definitely check it out.
Yes, and I've got to brush my shoulders off right quick because he's building a house there. Oh my gosh. And you know, if you have not checked out our other video about 5 things we loved about living in these 2 locations,
yes,
you need to go listen to it because Joe's over here with a whole like someone who makes his food every day, $600 rent for 3 bedrooms and ensuite bathrooms, ensuite bathrooms, you know, whatever it is, you get the point.
Yeah.
$600 US, y'all. Go click on that video because there's a whole bunch of benefits to living in both Ghana and Barbados. So people are always asking me, is Wi-Fi convenient? Because I guess as Americans, it's just understood like, look, you're gonna have a little bit of a struggle when it comes to Wi-Fi in other countries.
Right.
But I will say in Barbados, there was no struggle, honestly. Like it was easy peasy in my Airbnb. The only thing I will say is before I moved into the Airbnb, I had seen some advice from someone on YouTube mentioning to ask them to do a speed test and to give you back, let you know that information. But whenever I ventured out to use Wi-Fi elsewhere in the restaurants and anything, good, easy peasy, no problem. I actually forgot that was a concern for people until I started getting those questions. Different or similar?
Very different. So I will say this, everybody I know who, especially as a content creator and having a YouTube channel, I go live every week.
Oh, shoot.
You guys have been telling me, or my subscribers have been telling me, I can tell you're in the States right now because it's much more clear going live in the States. So I became like an internet nerd in terms of upload and download speeds. So in Ghana or in Sierra Leone, you have to buy packages for how much data you get, right? It's pay as you go. You don't get like, you can pay unlimited, but it'd be an exorbitant amount of money. So you just pay as you go.
Yeah.
It's too much. It'd be like over $150 or whatever to do unlimited. Yeah, but if you want to spend about $60 a month, which will get you everything you need, here are some of the challenges that you have. So the megabytes per second or megabytes, whatever, MBS, that's an important thing that we don't think about, right? You think about the total data package, right? But the MBS means how much is done per second. An example is when I'm here in New York, I can upload a video that's a 20-minute video and it uploads within 2 to 3 minutes. In Sierra Leone, because I'm on like 3 or 5 megabits per second MBS, it might take an hour or an hour and 20 minutes. Yes.
Pause for a second, because I remember Joe telling me this, like me and Joe, we work with the same editor. And so like, I remember you saying it's gonna take me like an hour or 2 hours to upload. So I'm like, what's going on? Are you sure you're doing this, that, and the third? He's like, my Wi-Fi. And I'm like, I did not have that problem in Barbados. But continue. These are some good tips and hacks. So what else should we look out for?
So there's that. And so you should also make sure that you have backups, right? And you have a mobile MiFi. So I have 2 internet service providers at home and I have a MiFi and I'm about to get a second MiFi backup.
Oh, that.
Yeah, because I use Wi-Fi when I'm out and sometimes my Vodafone doesn't work or MTN doesn't work. And so I need to use that while I'm out there. So I just use a third party. So I use Surfline on one of my MiFis or I use MTN as the other MiFi. And then at home, I have Vodafone and MTN. That's in Ghana. In Sierra Leone, I have Africell and I have Orange. So like you always have to have more than one because you never know when one company goes down and you don't want to be in that situation. Trust me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard, you got all the tea from Joey Hatagwa. Thank you, wow.
Yeah, it's real.
Wow. Good to know. Y'all been asking a lot about rent, and I told you about Prince Joe's person who makes it too. So let's talk about that. So rent for me, we already know for you, Joe, it's different. We know that $600, right? Yep. For everything that we said he got. I paid $1,300, but let me just go on record saying mine was Airbnb, and it was a good discount for an Airbnb. What I was seeing on the norm was like $2,000 US. But if you are living there for 6 months plus or a year, it'll definitely be probably like half that, so maybe $1,000 or whatever, or maybe 2/3 of the price. And if you are getting an apartment that is empty and not furnished, then you'll get an even better deal. So I just want to go on record saying that. But it comes with the basics for every other US state aside from New York. You get the garage, you get a backyard, etc. But Joe, tell them about Ghana.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and it depends on where you live in Ghana, right? In Accra, specifically the capital city. I'm in Chateau. It's an up-and-coming area. 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. Each of the bedroom has an ensuite bathroom. And yeah, I have a half bathroom for guests. So nobody has to actually go into your room and use your bathroom. Now, it's just a single person myself. So I'm spending the $600 a month myself for that rent and for that apartment. But I will say it was an unfurnished apartment. It was unfurnished.
Oh, it was unfurnished.
It was unfurnished, so I brought my own furniture, and I did have to include hot water. I forgot to mention that before. So I bought
It's still better. Meters. That's a little part that made me feel a little better, but I was like, it's still a way better deal. Get over it, Jackie.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, and the other thing about rent in Ghana is the law. Don't let them tell you otherwise. The law says you can't make someone pay more than 6 months in advance, but it's not paid on a month-to-month basis. Now, most of the time they'll try to tell you a year in advance, and if you're local, they try to do 2 years in advance.
What in the world?
Yeah. Some locals pay 2 years in advance for their rent. But I know the law. And so they tried to get me on that. I'm like, 6 months. I'm like, 6 months.
Look, thank you for bringing the hacks to this channel. For y'all that, if you're new, this is what this channel is about. Lifestyle hacks, everything from beauty to travel to home design, etc. Being a new influencer, like all the tips and tricks. So thank you for providing that. I appreciate you, sir.
Yes.
Now y'all know the law. Don't get played. Oh my gosh. Wow. You get a lot. And then on top of that, you
have a housekeeper.
Tell me about Vivian.
Yes, I have Vivian. So Vivian's my housekeeper. I like that you remember her name. So Vivian's my housekeeper. She is really, really dope. So for about $107 a month, she makes 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. And she does meal prep for me. So she doesn't cook all 7 days. She'll cook like twice or 3 times throughout the week.
Okay.
And then I stagger how I do it, right? So I use a lot of fruits and vegetables for my salad and my juices. So my lunch and breakfast are done on the same day. So she goes and buys all the fruits and vegetables, and one day she'll just do all of my salads for at least 4 days, and then my fruit juices for 4 days. And then I actually use fruit as the dressing on top of my salad instead of actual salad dressing.
Guys,
so
we're living wrong in the US.
So she cuts up my fruit and meal preps the fruit. Then I have salad meal prepped, and then I have juices. And so she does all of that, and that's done 2 to 3 times a week for the full week. So every day I have that access to that for breakfast and lunch. And then for dinner, she makes vegan-friendly West African dishes. So vegan-friendly jollof rice, vegan-friendly groundnut soup, and vegetable stew as well. So that's what she does for me for $107.
Are you paying extra for the food, or is that inclusive?
Well, no, she does have to go grocery shopping. So when she goes grocery shopping, it's usually about $30 to $40 per trip. But that's all meals included, right? So it's like $30 to $40 a trip. So I usually spend, I think because she goes grocery shopping about twice a week. So maybe $60 to $80 a week. So it's a little less than like $160 or so a month on food. And then so the cost of living is like on another level so much cheaper than living in. Listen, I've been here for the last month. I spent all the money. All the money has been spent being back in New York. I forgot how expensive it is.
It could be, especially in comparison. What would you say your monthly expenses coming to if you're comfortable saying it?
Here in New York?
Well, compare it to.
Well, let's just put it this way. I just spent $80 at the grocery store, and I didn't buy near the amount of stuff that I would have bought back in Ghana. Right?
I spent $250 at Trader Joe's
per trip,
but I buy it for a month. I spent about $300.
Yeah, but I mean, I also eat out a lot more because I'm not cooking. So I haven't even factored in how much it's been costing me to order food.
Oh.
Yeah, I just ordered from a vegan restaurant. My meal was $40. But it's gonna be 2 meals though, so it's $20 a meal. But still, I mean, if you add it all up, in the States, for sure, I'm spending more like $400 or so, $400 or $500 on food versus like, $160 on food plus the housekeeper, you know, so $260.
Higher quality of living, y'all. Higher quality. All right. Next one. Directions. So here in the US, for me, I just ask for an address pretty much.
Right.
And then I go ahead and use my Google Maps the way I would normally do it.
Yeah.
But when I went to Barbados, they were asking me to drop a pin. And so, first of all, I didn't know how to do that because I never have to do that here. I kind of felt like an old lady, like talking to Gen Zers. I'm like, how do you drop a pin? Someone showed me. Now, that's part one, right? Part two, when people are dropping pins to me, I'm arriving to wherever I have to go. And then I'm like, but where the heck am I going? Because I'm like, okay, I'm in that area, but which building is it? What's the street that I'm on? Like, I have no information. Right. So was it similar or different?
Very similar. Yeah, I mean, not everybody puts everything on Google Maps, right? Because you do have to register addresses with Google, right? And so if you don't do that, and somebody just tells you the address, you may not find it. And that's happened to me on many occasions. So
this is why they drop a pin here.
I think that's why they drop a pin. Okay, so here's an example, right? So in the US, you'll say, I'm on this street between this block and this block. Or like a taxi driver will know, like coming to your address, the number, they knew which way to go, left or right, because they knew what street to be on and they knew in what range your number was without saying the number, right?
Or we know evens are on one side.
And odds are on the other. And that's pretty similar there, evens and odds. But you have an issue there where if not everything is in Google, then you have to start going with like landmarks.
Okay.
Like you got to turn right by the gas station, or right after the gas station is the second street on the right. The street's name might have changed over time.
Okay.
Because a lot of people change the name of streets. We did it in Sierra Leone. I have 2 streets now where we changed the name. One in Bo and one in Freetown. So I know in Ghana they do the same thing. And so if you haven't registered it with the municipality and also put it on Google, then a street is just a street. And so that is why they drop pins a ton, at least in Ghana. And in Sierra Leone, Google Maps never works, so you don't even drop pins. It's all landmarks. It's all landmarks.
How was that for you? Because I realized people often try to give me the directions in Barbados, and I was like, I don't want the directions. I want to use my Google Maps because it was a whole thing. Like, so you mostly did cabs and Ubers and whatnot, drivers.
Yeah.
I drove. So there's driving on the left-hand side, which by the way, if you want to know about that whole experience and my personal advice and some very important tips to make sure you don't get in an accident, click this video for driving in Barbados. But because I had all the concerns of driving on the left side and then some, I was like, just give me the pen and I will look up the directions because I don't want to get in an accident.
Yeah. Well, first of all, driving on the left side, I don't even know how you did that.
It wasn't that hard. That wasn't that hard, that part, surprisingly.
Okay.
I mean, I did have to remind myself, like, sometimes when turning.
I don't drive. I can drive, I choose not to. So when I'm in Ghana, they have Uber and Bolt, which is great. We do not have Uber. And so usually, if you put it into Google Maps, they can generally get to the general vicinity if it's in a major part of Accra. Sometimes, like I have a friend of mine who lives in East Legon Hills, for instance, her and her sister. And when they give us directions, they give you directions to a point, and then they say, once you reach there, you do this.
Okay.
So you go down 2 blocks by the red house, you make a left, and then it's the fourth door on your right. And it's just how it has to be because not everything is registered with Google. So you gotta have to be good at paying attention when somebody gives you those directions, or if somebody's sending you directions, they need to type that out.
Oh, or that part.
Yeah, like so you get a WhatsApp message like, okay, you get to the red house, you make a left after you get to the red house, and then it's the second house on the right, and it's a black gate, and it's like, it's a lot.
I'm gonna tell you, it was funny that you said you kind of have to be good at paying attention when people are giving you directions. Because I kind of like check out when people give me directions, and it's because I've become almost like handicapped and stuck to these Google Maps things. I'm like, yeah, just give me the pin.
Yeah.
It actually, I don't know if hopefully I don't embarrass myself, but like, I feel like it takes an extra effort to focus for directions. Like, but it's so easy in comparison to other things in my life.
Yeah.
That's funny that you said that.
Yeah. And so in Sierra Leone, I have a personal driver. My caretaker also is my driver too. So he knows where everything is. So, but like, I've had to take public transportation and I'm trying to tell them where this thing is. They have no idea where it is. I've gotten out to some random strange places in Freetown. Thank goodness, I keep my pick on me. It's a metal pick that I used to comb my beard just in case.
If you're black, you already know the pick. If you're not black, you know the pick. It's a pick we use to pick our hair.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a comb. Right. So I keep it on me and keep it handy. And I also got a little taser just in case, what I mean? Have somebody take
Yo,
a
that's
seat.
the New Yorker. You see the way you did that? What is that move that you did? I can't even do it. I'm not from New York.
Just in case. You know, you never know when you need to use that. But yeah, but I will say, directions and dropping a pin, it can be really helpful in some cases, but as you said, like if someone lives in an apartment building or the pin, because you know, Google will tell you the pin is within 200 meters. So like it's, when you drop the pin, when you get there, it's not always gonna be right at the place. It might be the next building over, it might be the one across the street, so, or within 15 meters or 200 meters, whatever the number is, but it's not always exact. And so that's why when you get to some place, you have to tell people like, hey, I'm here. Now where do I go?
You know, the biggest takeaway before we jump to the next one is really just putting aside what you're used to and your cultural practices and accepting the cultural practices of wherever you live. And you don't always need to necessarily know why. It is helpful to know why. But just understand there's a reason. They didn't just decide they're gonna do this and even if there is no reason, this ain't your country. So, and it's something I had to tell myself. So I'm sharing it with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be humble.
Oh.
Just because you know different doesn't mean you know better.
That part. I will say Barbados, they also, not all of the buildings have numbers on them, so that's also one reason why they do that. Let's talk about these mosquitoes, Joe.
Yes. Yeah.
It's legit and real. I will say, I don't know if it's because I've been to the Caribbean, like, I did notice that they didn't eat me up as much as they ate up some of my friends that visited, but it was definitely important if I was going to be hanging outside and not in one of the main areas where there's a ton of restaurants and things like that, I had to have my Centrella. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Centrella or my mosquito spray on. Centrella is like some kind of oil that like repels the mosquitoes, but it wasn't too bad.
So couple things. Because I've dealt with a ton of mosquitoes, I've learned about mosquitoes. They like warm, damp places. So anywhere where there's a lot of puddles, or you're near an ocean or near water, or if it rains, that's when mosquitoes come. So when you're sitting outside, just be wary of that. So everybody has mosquito coils. People who sit outside have those coils, you know, like it's like a mosquito coil and it sits on top of it and you burn it and it's supposed to keep the mosquitoes away. But I also saw a study that they did where they had 2 different people put their hand in a jar where there was mosquitoes in there and how much that they were biting them, and it's certain certain blood types that they're big fans of. And for whatever it is, they like my blood. So as long as I'm on the continent, I get bit up like crazy. So if you wear a long sleeve, it's harder to get through it. I wear pants, you know, the new thing is to wear pants with little ankles showing. My ankles get bit up all the time. 5-6 mosquito bites on one leg, on one ankle, yeah. So you just gotta make sure you wear your mosquito repellent and you have to reapply it. You can't just put it on once and think you're good all day.
Like sunscreen.
Apply and reapply like sunscreen, correct. Yes, so yeah, I mean, those are the 2 things that I would let you know. And yes, it is definitely a thing in Ghana, and it's definitely a thing in Sierra Leone. And in Sierra Leone, so much so that a lot of people have mosquito nets on their beds. Like over your bed. You know, you hear them like, when they fly, and it's the worst thing, you know?
That happened to me. Once they get in, it's like, and they stay by you, and it's like, yo, can you,
They're basically like parasites, right? They can't live without you. They have to live off of you, so they need your blood.
Okay, here's something I figured out after living there. Apparently, if you're on the first floor, Barbados, if you're on the first floor, more bugs will come in. Okay. The other thing too is where I was living, they had like a screen, not a screen door, but like a kind of like screen fabric thing placed over that you had to add yourself. They bought it in the store clearly. But if I could do it again, I would opt for a place where they had a screen door. So, you know, there's your regular door you open and then there's a screen door. And this is probably all me coming from the US, first world country, yeah. It is convenient, I'm just letting you know.
Listen, I live in Ghana. My family is from Sierra Leone. I've been going forever. Screens, always use screens. Yeah, I mean, listen, I like to keep the outside outside and the inside.
Say it again.
Right? And so for me, I'm not a big fan of all the extra bugs. And you know, they'll make their way inside. And malaria is something that mosquitoes pass, which is why so many African countries have malaria medication and high cases of malaria, because they do pass in between them. And so that's just something you need to think about. So not trying to scare you, just trying to prepare
you. Be prepared.
Yeah.
Look at you rhyming.
I'm not going to
What's the deal, Joe? I'm gonna let you go first for this. What's the deal with being on time? Is that a thing in Ghana?
No, it's not a thing. It's not a thing in Ghana. It's not a thing. Being on time is not a thing. Whether social or business, people are almost always late in my experience. I know you Ghanaians are gonna come after me and say it's not true for business, but it is. I spent a year working at a multinational organization. I did Zoom calls and I did in-person meetings. Didn't matter.
Not on time.
Not on time.
Okay. How late did they start?
So when it came to like Zoom calls, a lot of times those would be just a couple minutes late because you're not traveling anywhere to get on it.
15?
Well, no, five minutes,
okay.
about 5 minutes. But if it was in person, it could be as much as 30 minutes for an hour meeting. That's happened like 6 times.
Okay. That's
6
like
times.
super offensive in the US, just for context.
Oh yeah, especially if it's an hour-long meeting and you're like 30 minutes late.
Your boss will definitely have a conversation with you after if they were in the meeting. And if you do it multiple times, there's gonna be consequences.
And in my case, these were the managers. These were the C-level execs that were late. I would say the CEO and the CCO were never late for meetings. Okay. But other people, or CMO wasn't late. But the other people, won't say who they were late all the time.
And all the time. Accepted.
Yeah, and it was generally accepted because everyone's always late, right? So it's kind of like a self-perpetuating cycle, right? It's like if you're always late, then you're always late, then you're always late. And it's just like, it's a thing. And people do always say, one thing I'll say is people always say we have to get better at that. But don't work to get better. Don't work to get better.
There was one thing I love that you did. You said you always still showed up on time anyway.
I did, yeah, absolutely.
Because
for me, the main reason why I do show up on time is a lot of the businesses that I'm working with were multinational companies, especially in Europe and sometimes in the US. And culturally, they're used to being on time, right? And when it comes to any like multinational business, you kind of have to do business like the West does business because they're the ones who introduced capitalism in the state that it's in today, right? And so because of that, you kind of have to do it the way they do it. And so different when it comes to social events, who cares, right? You're late 2 hours, whatever.
Maybe late.
Yeah, definitely. But when it comes to business, when you're doing business with a multinational company, especially when the language you have to speak is English. So if you know you're speaking English in that business, then you know you're doing business with a multinational, and then you have to do business like the multinationals do it. And that means you need to be on time. And so for me, I just made sure that I was always on time no matter what. I mean, there are many times where but the funny thing is, there were times where we were late as a team and I would show up somewhere and the company that we're meeting with, they were late as well. So I'm sitting in a conference room by myself, waiting for them to be done their previous meeting or whatever they're doing, and for my people to get there, and we still start late. I went to a meeting one time, it was 45 minutes outside of the capital city in Ghana, and they started the meeting an hour and a half late. So we were supposed to be there at 4. They didn't start the meeting until 5:30. And then we weren't done until almost 7 o'clock. And it still was gonna take us like almost an hour to get home. I got home after 8 p.m. for a 4 o'clock meeting. So that can happen, guys. That can happen. Patience is a virtue, as I mentioned.
Say that part because I was thinking that was depressing.
But we wanted their business.
Yeah, once again, it's cultural differences though. Honestly, it's because my norm is something else. That's why it's so like saddening to me. Yeah. But if you choose to live in another country, then you gotta choose to adapt to the culture. That's what it is.